Hello, Liam. How are you?
Good, man. How you going?
Yeah, good. Long time.
Good to
no
be
see.
back. Yeah, long time no see.
About 5 minutes. Today we have our guest, Honor.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah. So Honor, we got you in because you have a YouTube channel.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you talk about the Perth, like kind of live scene a bit.
Yeah.
But you're pretty like gauged in with stuff that I'm not too familiar with. So that's why I thought you'd be good to come on. So welcome, firstly.
Thank you. Stoked to be here.
Thank you. At the moment, you've done a few live reviews of different bands, but what's kind of, if people were to, walk away from this podcast checking out one band, where would you tell them to start off with?
Oh gosh. Young Robin are a band that I always promote because I love them.
Yeah, I've seen them at the Art. We saw them at the Aardvark.
Yeah, that was they played the launch party for the Aardvark, I believe.
Yeah,
that's
it.
Them.
Yeah.
That
was a good gig, that one.
Yeah, good bunch of kids. Really, good live band.
Well, one of the guys plays in Yomi Ship, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah,
they're great.
That kid's a legend.
Yeah.
He's something
very
special.
Talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yomi Ship are going to be kind of like the next kind of Perth band that gets a really good amount of attention, I think. So
For sure.
I believe that is also the case. They're already getting really good turnouts to their live shows.
Well, I was stoked for them because they got that support position with Carnival.
Yeah. I went to see that.
Yeah, was that good?
Oh my god, it was
I've
phenomenal.
seen Carnival before, but I didn't get to that gig. Was that at the Rosemount?
Yeah, that's actually the most viewed video on my channel because I vlogged that.
Oh,
I put like a clickbaity title. It was like a Birds of Tokyo fan goes to a Carnival gig. There's just like a lot of...
See, I would click that. That's the thing.
There's just a lot of like 40-year-old men in the comments being like, why are you a Birds of Tokyo fan? Like Carnival's so much better. You know nothing about music.
Yeah, because I actually had more mates into Birds of Tokyo at school than Carnival. But the mates that were into Carnival were much more hardcore about it. But I knew more people who really were big into Birds of Tokyo, obviously, because they got that pop appeal.
Carnival has some really hardcore fans. I've come to
like
one of those bands that have a super hardcore following.
Well, one of my best friends, Matt Clark, shout out to him. His PlayStation user ID is something like Vooligan. And so I grew up, like, he was one of my best mates in high school, and he was mad about Carnival to the point of resentment where I would resent it, and I was fanatic about AC/DC and he would resent AC/DC, and they would both actually like the other band.
Yeah.
People who are into Carnival get really into Carnival.
Absolutely.
Actually, I had a pretty funny story when we went to Carnival last time they played at Badlands. We rocked up, and I remember saying to Matt, because they played, I think, 3 nights. And I said to him a couple of days before, and I was like, no, it's definitely the Sunday show, right? And he was like, yeah, it's absolutely the Sunday show. And I was like, I just had this feeling. I was like, he's bought tickets to the fucking Saturday show, and I know it. And I was like, absolutely. And he was like, yep, it's definitely the Sunday show. We rock up, we hand the tickets over, and the girl's like, these are tickets to last night's show. And we're like, oh shit. And so I turned to him and I was like, man, what? And he was like, oh man, I swear. And I was like, oh. And I turned to the lady that was helping us out, and I was like, oh look, if you scan it, you'll see they just didn't get redeemed last night, and you still got tickets for Saturday night. Can you just get us in? And she was like, no, I can't, unfortunately. Drew Goddard from Carnival was standing next to the desk, and he laughed at us. He's like, he turned and he shouted to someone, and he's like, oi, these boys bought tickets to the wrong night. And like, it was cracking up laughing. And then he walked off, and we were just like, oh man, even the band's
just laughed and walked away. And
then he came back and said something to the girl, and the girl was like, they put you on the tour rider. So,
sick.
So yeah, it's all good now.
Good guy,
like,
Carnival.
Sweet. So we never got to thank him for that. We got to like kind of bit of a wave to him because he went off into the distance. But if you're listening, Drew Goddard, thank you for that. That was very kind of you.
That's awesome.
I'm willing to take that laugh at our expense.
Yeah,
I'll give you that laugh at our expense.
Worth it.
Yeah, definitely worth it. It was a good night, that one.
So, other than that video that you mentioned, for somebody who is checking out the podcast and might want to go and check out your channel, what would you say? What was the best description you could give of what it is that you do? What kind of things do you like to cover other than the Perth music scene, or do you tend to focus on that mostly?
It's probably like 70% Perth music, and then I do like all sorts of other stuff. I did a 25-minute deconstruction of Hosier's new album. I review other things. I got a band from the UK email me saying, can you review a new single? So I did that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, all sorts, talking about... Oh, I do music history as well.
Yeah.
Little
that's cool.
videos on that. Mainly English music
Sort of
history.
like video essay kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a cool channel as well, not to derail it off the channel, but have you heard of Middle 8?
It rings a bell.
Yeah, he hasn't released many, but the ones he does are really, really good, like very well researched. And he got my attention like pretty much the moment he uploaded his first one, because he did one on King Gizzard's history, and then he did one on MGMT. But he did, if there's one that you guys should check out, is the backstory to UMO's Multi-Love. Well, I think it's the whole history, but it focuses mostly on Multi-Love. And it's a fascinating story because, are you familiar with UMO?
No.
So Unknown Mortal Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry. I realized I probably said that really quickly and then it just sounded like a blur of a word. But their album Multi-Love, great album. I was into it for years and I had no idea on the backstory, but it actually turned out that he entered a polyamorous relationship when he met someone in Australia, actually. And that she ended up coming back to the US with him to his house, and he introduced her into the relationship. And his wife and her got along really, really well romantically, and it became this polyamorous relationship. And she ended up having to leave because of visa issues. And he wrote that album about the experience of having that happen. And he had just had a kid as well, and so it was this like weird kind of situation where you've just had a child. Dedicated to this person, and then another person comes along, and it's this really kind of whack situation. And then he wrote 100%. An album about it, and then with that context, listened to the album, and it took on a completely different meaning. And some of the lyrics, like little moments of lyrics, you're like, oh wow, I kind of get what he's talking about now. You interpret it one way, but knowing that,
we've talked about that before, about how you learn the background story behind an album, and it recontextualizes the whole thing. Yeah. And you can enjoy it on a completely different level. Have you ever had that experience?
Can't think of one that comes to mind.
Sorry, we put you on the spot. Yeah. It's a bit of a
10 second time.
A niche question.
It
really.
is.
But yeah.
But no, that's to be honest with you, I haven't really checked out much Unknown Mortal Orchestra beyond what I think you brought in a record of theirs last Record Store Day and played some.
Yeah, Sex and Food. That's a really good album.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
When it came out, I was like, all right, this is pretty good, but I think it actually might be my favorite one now. I really like it.
Yeah, I wasn't I was aware of them before that, but I didn't really know what type of music they were, or I just knew that they had like following.
Dream Poppy meets Jimi Hendrix meets.
Yeah,
it's kind of an all-around. It's very bedroom kind of produced vibes.
Yeah.
Because he's a bit of an insomniac, and so a lot of the songs he wrote when he'd be like up at 4 a.m. and stuff and couldn't sleep. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Bedroom depression pop.
Yeah,
is probably a label you could throw on it, because a lot of it gets really really dark at times.
Yeah. So where is it? Would that be the best starting point then? The one you're. Where's your starting point for them? And also for people who are listening who haven't heard them.
I think Sex and Food probably is the best one to start with. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Go listen to that, everybody.
Yeah, it kind of touches on everything, and then the earlier albums are much more lo-fi, because I think lo-fi got old pretty quick. Between like 2012 to 2017, I think was when lo-fi kind of really had its peak. And now people have just like kind of taken elements from it, and going back to producing with,
Do you think that correlated with Currents being released? Because that movie.
No, I'd say it's Mac DeMarco's fault.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Because I think
Because he by no means invented lo-fi,
no, of course not.
but he definitely popularized it to many who may have never touched upon it otherwise.
Even his last album, not the most recent one, Here Comes the Cowboy, but the one prior to that.
Oh yeah, he's dropped
super
it.
lo-fi.
He was the kind of one to popularize it, and he was smart enough to drop it when he needed to.
So Here Comes the Cowboy is not lo-fi whatsoever.
I would not consider it. No, he's
Haven't
definitely
heard
got
that.
like overdrives on his pedals and all that to kind
Yeah.
of give it that crunch,
Yeah.
so to speak. Even though he's like playing pretty mellow, but
Makes me all the more interested to hear it now because I'm so used to.
it's like 30-minute. It's a 30-minute album. You could listen to it on the drive home. So
Yeah.
can the Proton handle that?
Proton is pretty. It's pretty lo-fi car actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Good
have.
vibe.
Yeah, it's got a CD player, but it doesn't work properly. It eats CDs.
What kind of albums are your commute albums?
So
Is
many different things.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of soul music.
Yeah.
So that's usually what I'm listening to, or British rock,
Yeah.
like all the quintessential bands.
Yeah.
Who would
So,
you
like-
consider the quintessential bands?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
I was
The
about to ask
Jam,
the same thing.
The Who,
Yeah.
The Clash, like Rolling Stones, just all of those. I'm really into mod music
Yeah.
because my dad was a massive mod, still is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the bands that when you go record digging, they have their own card for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, beyond just the letter. You know, you got the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, the Who, and all that.
yeah. Pink Floyd were they were a strange mix of like mod and psychedelia in the early days. Definitely.
The more I explore music, the more I appreciate Pink Floyd.
Yeah, the Syd Barrett era is definitely like a bit of a hard pill to swallow initially.
Yeah.
But having said that, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their debut, has like some pretty heavy moments on it and some pretty accessible moments as well.
Yeah.
Like Interstellar Overdrive is probably a good example of that.
Yep.
And then they've just got some really weird, cheesy, kind of whimsical moments as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't checked out like the Syd Barrett era stuff, I'm sure most people listening probably have, but if you haven't, yeah, take some time to check it out and start with the first one. Start with Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Your YouTube channel, you mentioned that you do like music history and breakdowns. Because I've watched a few of your videos, but mostly the stuff on the local bands.
Yeah.
What are some like the music history ones that you've done?
I've only done 2
Yeah.
so far. I'm planning on doing other ones. I did one on the Northern Soul movement, which is like something I'm obsessed with.
Actually, I did see a bit of that one.
Yeah. And on the Rock Against Racism movement in
Yep.
the 70s in England. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Basically, it started because Eric Clapton went on a bit of a weird racist rant once at a show while he was really drunk. It's surprising a lot of people don't know
I've not
about
heard
it.
about this.
No, I know.
And I've done a few Wikipedia deep dives on Eric Clapton. So.
By all accounts, Clapton is a bit of a douchebag.
Yeah, well, he stole George Harrison's wife.
Yeah.
And it was kind of... George Harrison was dignified enough to not be tied up, and it was very gracious. I didn't get emotional.
Yeah,
So,
good
but-
guy Harrison.
Yeah, what was this rant that he...
He got really drunk on stage, and he started talking about, because Enoch Powell was trying to get into power in England, and he did that big speech about keeping England white. And yeah, he basically said like, we need to get all the black people out, we need to keep England white, and people just not having it, because I mean all of his music is black influenced.
Yeah.
And so there was, I always forget their names, but there was 2 people, and they wrote into NME magazine
Yep.
to say like, what the hell are you going on about? Because like you wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for black music. And they organised this massive march from, where was it from? Trafalgar Square into, forget the name of the town, but it was like the hub of like the working class people in London that were trying to keep England white. and the Clash were involved, and like a load of reggae bands, and it was just like white musicians and black musicians getting together to say like, just make us dance. And that really rocked a lot of things. And then it started a like sort of program. Like they would have each month one white band that would support a black reggae band. So it was like punk rockers supporting reggae and ska and that. That happened like all around, just concerts everywhere.
And is that how kind of like, because punk and ska have a kind of very closely
Two-tone.
linked kind of relationship?
That's
is that
right.
how that kind of
Pretty much
cohesive
yeah,
relationship
that's how
started?
two-tone was formed.
I watched a documentary actually.
That's what that's called, two-toned?
Yeah.
So bands like
Madness.
Oh, gosh.
The
Sublime?
Specials.
the Specials,
Would Sublime be considered?
That came later. That was like the second wave of ska. That was American ska.
Right. Yeah.
First wave of ska is like the Beat, the Specials, the Madness, those kind of bands. And yeah, pretty much exactly what you were saying was in the documentary that I was watching recently, which pretty much explained that people were sick and tired of racism and
because what about bands like Bad Brains, for example?
Bad Brains,
that are like punk meets reggae, right?
Still came, definitely, but still came after all this. This took place
of course, because they're 90s.
Yeah,
this took place in this was 70s.
Yeah, it took place in the 70s. But yeah, like you were saying, it all started because they were putting reggae bands in the same bills as punk bands, and naturally, when you put two different types of music together on the same stage, obviously people are going to start jamming with each other and recording, and that's the story of the origins of ska.
Yeah. Huh. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll have to watch that. So is that one of your more recent videos, that one?
Not too recent.
Yeah.
Probably, I think I maybe did it in January or February.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess now might be a good time to plug your channel. So where do people go if they want to watch that?
It's just Luca on YouTube.
So is that spelled HONORLUCA?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. American spelling with honor. And
Yep.
then Luca. Yeah.
Perfect. And that's just your channel name, and they'll find that on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
You can go through my Instagram. It's the same.
Yep.
I post more on Instagram like every day about music. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw on the weekend you saw Catfish in the Bottle Man.
Yes.
How was that? That's another band I don't know too much about. When I worked at JB Hi-Fi, I watched their CDs fly off the shelves, and I always meant to give it a listen once I got home, but that never happened. So, yeah. Well, describe them. Are they... Because they kind of sit in that alt indie rock kind of category,
very
right?
like stereotypical British indie rock.
Yep. So fans of like the Kooks and...
Yeah. They're like heavier than the Kooks, but still got that British sound. Yeah.
And where was that gig? Was that
HBF? I don't know if it's stadium or
bloody big
arena.
venue to
That's
film.
a big venue.
Yeah.
Packed it out.
Pretty much. Yeah, we struggled to get
Jeez.
very close.
Wow.
Because that's where Red Hot Chili Peppers played.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, most recently.
Wow, I
yeah.
greatly underappreciated how many people listened to them.
Oh yeah, they're massive, especially in England. Like
Mm.
Glastonbury,
I was about
they
to
were
say that. There's a
huge.
lot of English people who live in WA, so I
Yeah,
can imagine
we're
that.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw a headline that even claimed that they've I didn't read the article, but that they've like changed the face of indie music, and
Yeah, wow.
so they must be making
I need to
some
actually
waves.
give them a listen then.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I haven't heard. I think actually no, I may have heard a single of theirs sometime
I feel like
ago.
they're one of those artists that you eventually get around to listening. You're like, oh, that's these guys.
Probably already. Yeah. Probably already heard them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who was in support? Any support?
Firebird. I'm not sure where they're from, but
Not a Perth
they're-
band.
No, they are Aussie, but
They
from
were
over
the-
east. Yeah.
Yeah, touring support. Yeah, right. And were they good?
Yeah, they were pretty good. We missed the first half because our Uber was late, but
Yeah.
Classic Uber.
yeah.
It's not like an Uber's ever late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, going back to Eric Clapton quickly. There's a funny story about another Clapton is a dick story. So back when not many people knew who Jimi Hendrix was.
I think I know this story.
Yeah, it's probably a
yeah.
well-known story actually. so Clapton was playing a show, and I don't know whether it was with the Yardbirds at the time or whether it was Cream, or maybe it was just a solo show. Maybe he had a band together he was gigging with, but Clapton was doing his thing on stage, you know, being Clapton, playing his guitar. And he invited a young Jimi Hendrix up on stage to play. Either he invited him up or one of his band members invited him up. And not too many people knew who Hendrix was at the time. They didn't know that, you know, guy had some chops on the guitar.
He also knew how to do the guitar.
Yeah, he also knew how to do the guitar. That's right. So he comes up on stage, and basically just blows Clapton out of the water. So Jimi Hendrix is doing Jimi Hendrix things, and Clapton just drops his guitar in the middle of the set, walks off the stage, and like just lights a cigarette. And he's like shaking in anger. He's like having a drag of his cigarette. He's like so mad. And stage manager walked up to him, and he's like, "Dude, what's wrong? Like, why'd you walk off stage?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't know he was gonna be that fucking good. Like, he's just ruined my career." So yeah, another story about how Clapton is potentially just like a really all-round dodgy dickhead.
Yeah.
But not surprising that Hendrix showed him up. I mean, it's pretty much.
I feel like that was inevitable, whether it was on Clapton's stage or not.
It was going to happen eventually.
Those comparisons and that combat was going to.
He learned it in probably the worst possible way. But maybe if he was a humbler human being, he wouldn't have been shaking in anger, chuffing on his cigarette.
Yeah.
He might have just hung around and admired some Jimmy, but his loss, I guess. Yeah.
Actually, another interesting story that I already knew about, but I watched the movie on the weekend, is Lords of Chaos. Have you heard about this, Honor?
No.
Do you know who Mayhem are?
Yep. I don't know why they're coming up from home.
They're like the iconic Norwegian black metal band.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they kind of have a legacy in their own right and draw interest from people even if they're not into black metal because of their story. But Liam, you definitely would know Mayhem.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've seen them live. It was a fascinating show.
Yeah, I bet. So, there's a great film that's come out. It's on Amazon Prime Video now, and it's called Lords of Chaos, and it stars Rory Culkin, who's Macaulay Culkin's brother. But the movie is really good, and the guy who directed it, he directed a bunch of music videos for like Taylor Swift and I think a couple for U2.
Might be mistaken, but I heard he was in a metal band once upon a time as well.
Probably. You go to I checked out the director's website after, and it's all metal themed. Like,
Yeah.
even though it's got very little to do with metal, he's
not from Norway, is he?
His web design.
Is he from Norway?
I think he's got a very Norwegian name.
Yeah. So I think he may have
He's got
been
an accent on above one of the letters, so I think so.
Yeah. I think he may have been in a
Or
black metal
something like
band. That's what I heard. But
so you've heard the name Mayhem then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the story goes that black, do you know much about metal at all? Do you get much into metal?
Not really.
Yeah.
I'm sort of trying to dip my toes into heavier stuff.
Yeah. So you got bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest from, the new wave of British heavy metal and all that. That was kind of like late 70s, early 80s. And then in the 90s, the kind of counter to that was that you had bands like Death, who started death metal. I'm pretty sure that's why it's called death metal.
Death metal came from one of two places, arguably. It was either Possessed, which were like they were like a cross. I guess they were a thrash metal band, but they sort of crossed over into much heavier territory than any other thrash band before them. And their guitarist, oddly enough, Larry Lalonde, he's actually Primus's guitarist. So he originally played in Possessed.
That's all right.
So
I've watched that guy on YouTube before perform, and I was like, damn, this guy's...
He's got some chops, and he shreds a lot.
That blew my mind. Just
so he played in Possessed. And the other place, and there's other bands I'm sure in other parts of the world that were doing similar things, but these are the most recognized two bands that started death metal. The other one is Death.
See, that's where I thought I'd read that the name death metal had come from Death, because they're not the point I was getting to with death metal is that people get the two mixed up, and they think black metal is just kind of really heavy, and then death metal is the really the scary, fucked up one.
Yeah, black metal is
death metal is all about just technique, and
I think death metal was just about taking what people were doing in thrash metal and mutating that and making the themes a lot more about, like, you know, blood and gore and misanthropy and sadness and sorrow, and, you know, like, just taking what thrash metal were doing, slowing it down, making it a little bit more brutal, and
right,
or speeding it up. Depends on what type of, like, it went in so many different directions. Whereas black metal,
black
kind
metal
of
was really
well, black metal arguably evolved from, like, bands like Venom,
yeah.
and Motorhead as well.
Yeah,
were a big influence on black metal.
Yeah, well, the movie kind of touches upon that as well. And the way they painted it out to be is that Euronymous, who was the singer of... Sorry, no,
he was the guitarist, yeah.
Of Mayhem, started the scene, and he had a record shop in Norway, and
the scene basically centered around that record shop.
Yeah, and, you know, they would all hang out there. But what happened was Mayhem started up. They were, you know, late teenagers. This guy, I forget his name, but his stage name was Dead. He joined the band, and kind of black metal kind of was priding itself on being edgy. You know, they were the original 90s edgelords, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, this culture kind of manifested where they would try and outdo each other, in terms of, like, the most hectic stuff, hectic, evil things they could do.
And not just in their music, well,
yeah,
outside of the music.
So it was kind of kept in the music for a while and somewhat contained, and then it started bleeding out. And so the singer Dead, they were all living in a house together, from what I understand. And they, one day Euronymous came home, and he got along pretty well with Dead, but in a very kind of weird way. They would kind of challenge each other somewhat. And he came home one day, and Dead had actually killed himself with a shotgun to the head. And instead of calling the police, Euronymous decided to go to the servo and buy a disposable camera and took a photo of it, and it's now one of the official bootleg album covers.
Oh shit!
It's brutal. Don't Google it if you're of the faint
that
heart.
was not safe for life, that photo.
It's pretty dark, but it's very, like, shitty camera, so it's kind of it's not too vivid, but it's you know,
it's there, you can see it,
stomach dropping enough for it to kind of be very confronting.
Were you going to mention what he did next?
Yeah, so well,
at the scene
yeah, so there is a rumor, but I don't think it's true from what I read, because I got into, like, the history of black metal years and years ago, and this movie kind of reminded me of it all. But there is a rumor that he made a stew out of the brains, but
no, I wasn't going to say that.
The other one is true.
Yeah.
Where the brains one, I think, was
I don't think that's true.
Kind of, like,
yeah, I think that was just
amped it up.
Yeah, that was just hype.
Yeah, because it did seem like at the time, and it did seem like in the film, the way they portray it is that genuinely got to him. But what he did do is he got pieces of his skull and made necklaces out of it, and he gave it to all the band members, and he also would give it to people he would deem worthy enough to possess this. And one of the people that he did give one to was a guy by the name of Varg Vikernes, who recorded under the project Burzum. And the film mostly goes into that territory of those two, Varg Vikernes and Euronymous, their relationship. Because Varg played in another band, I forget the name. In the movie, they make him out to be, like, this absolute weird dweeb that just is trying to, like, fit in kind of thing. But it doesn't really do the true story service in that way. Like, he was kind of a little bit better respected amongst his peers.
He was, and he was well. A part of what I hear as well is he wrote the better riffs for Mayhem, and he was kind of the driving force behind their sound at the time.
Yeah,
in terms of what they were doing on the guitar.
Yeah, and that culture of outdoing each other bled into Varg and Euronymous' relationship. And they were the ones that were responsible for all the church burnings in Norway in the 90s. So they were of the mind that people should, you know, live by evil and Satan's values, and
They were
you know,
living and breathing it
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, they weren't just writing these lyrics and putting them in their music. They were living them out.
Yeah, it's very dark history, and they burnt down these churches, and then one of their friends murdered a guy to outdo each other, and then it got to the point where their relationship became so toxic that Euronymous moved away, shut down the record store. Did he shut it down? It's kind of what they imply in the movie, but I don't know that much of it.
Look, yeah, that I haven't seen the movie.
He just kind of like goes. He's got a new apartment.
What I know of the story is different.
You'd know it better than I do.
Look, I could be wrong. But I heard that the store was still open when,
maybe he
when
just
Euronymous
got
was
someone.
murdered.
So basically,
believe.
Varg ended up murdering Euronymous, and
With a knife.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. But as dark as that story is, it makes for an interesting film. I realize now, explaining that was pretty bummer story.
Oh, there's
to bring
no,
up, but
there's
it's
no good way to
fascinating
tell it.
nevertheless. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it just goes to show how, you know, when people's values and views can go unchecked, how far they can go and how dark it can get and how off the rails people can go.
Yeah,
Because they were
absolutely.
just trying to outdo each other. And it's a sad story, because you think about these 18, 19-year-old kids when they were first starting off, and they're just being edgy, and then it it grows, and
And you think about yourself at that age as well. Like, I'm sure a lot of people did stupid things and were involved in toxic friendships when they were of around that age, and it's crazy and sad that I suppose as well it's probably a lot to do with the isolation of where they were.
Yeah.
But there was nothing keeping that in check. It just kept snowballing, and became more and more sinister until eventually, like, 2 people were dead, and one was in prison.
yeah.
But I did hear as well that Dead chose that name for himself because he had always planned to kill himself, and the band members knew that. I think they were just waiting for him to do it.
Yeah, he was very obsessed with death.
He was super obsessed with death, and I think
in the movie, there's a few scenes where he's got like a dead like cat or something, or a dead rat in a bag. And he would huff the bag before he would go on stage.
Yeah, he was
Jesus.
and self mutilation and
hardcore story.
I mean, they were shitty human beings, really. But
they're terrible. Yeah,
they made some just super aggressive music. What black metal did was take the aggression of death metal, ramp it up to like 11, and then add like satanic and dark themed lyrics, add like a satanic sort of, and black sort of creepy forest sort of visual aesthetic to it, and kind of took the focus away from the technicality of the music and moved it more towards the atmosphere.
Yeah,
and
that's a really good way of describing it.
Yeah, it's much more about atmosphere and creating a mood and creating a feeling than death metal is. I think death metal is just more about more about the
proficiency, really.
Yeah, it is. Depending on like
I have a very limited list.
Look, yeah, definitely there are parts of death metal that are about the technical proficiency, and it's you definitely have
Chuck
to.
Schuldiner, is that how you pronounce
Chuck
it?
Schuldiner, yeah.
Schuldiner. He was an incredible guitarist.
100%. But I guess, he probably would have been responsible for a lot of death metal moving in that direction as well, because he kind of, in a sense, he kind of pioneered tech death. But I think, death metal was just more about like who could write the most brutal, crushing riffs, and a lot of that did involve technicality, but it wasn't like the focus.
The thing that I find interesting though about it is in the film they paint Varg out to be a Nazi, but he never once actually, from what I've read, I don't know, there could be things that combat this, that he never actually celebrated Nazism. It was kind of used in a poetic license kind of way to kind of paint him out like an idiot.
He's a nationalist.
Yeah.
I think he's got more look, I don't know whether he's a Nazi or not, to be honest with you, but he seems to have a lot in common with that that guy who went on a killing spree in Norway. Like, he has nationalist views, and he's a sociopath and a psychopath. So he's a dangerous combination of like, he's dangerous ideology, and he's just outright like a dangerous human being. He escaped from prison during his, I don't know if you know, I didn't
know about the escape from prison thing.
Yeah,
because he's out now. Like,
he's out,
legally out.
He's been released. Yeah, but while he was serving his term, he escaped from prison.
He
which
looks
is
like
pretty
the biggest hipster now as well.
Yeah,
he's like wearing like pastel kind of things. He's got like a well-crafted beer. You would expect to see him at a craft brewery.
He's not on YouTube anymore.
They banned his account.
Yeah, that's right. Because he used to just
fairly enough.
He just spews random crap. He's like the Alex Jones of Norway, basically, in terms of like the random stuff that comes out of his mouth. He's just a fucking crackpot.
Yeah, like that's but that's why his channel is getting views, because you watch it because
and also
it's
because people
it's
like Burzum. Yeah, people like Burzum. Burzum is fantastic.
That's the problem though. Like I went back and listened to Mayhem a bit the other night after I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I can see why I can see why I quickly forgot about these bands. Like I just couldn't get into it.
It's not accessible music.
But Burzum, the problem with Burzum is it's pretty good.
It's
like,
fucking great.
Brilliant.
And he was a one-man band, so he did the vocals, he did the guitar, the bass.
Ones are in prison, he wrote.
That's right, yeah. So eventually, he recorded like 2 or 3 albums, maybe 4. And then the prison time began, and he was only allowed
guitars or anything in there.
Nah, couldn't have guitars, couldn't have a drum, couldn't have a drum set, couldn't have anything. But he had like a keyboard, and it was an analog synth hybrid, I think.
Yeah.
And all he had was what was built within that keyboard. So, I don't know, drum machines, effects, whatever was in it. That's all he had, and he made 2 albums. That are kind of just like creepy ambient music made on these like 1970s era keyboards.
It's when you listen to it and you think about how limited in resources he was, you realize how crafty he was with production, and because it sounds pretty complete. It doesn't feel like there's shortcomings in it.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it sounds like what it should sound like. If that makes any sense, I guess it doesn't sound like it's lacking anything.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. That's like it kind of goes into that territory of where we're at with, and not to turn things political, but especially with the Michael Jackson thing, or this second wave of Michael Jackson kind of concern, and that kind of debate of where does it go? What line does it cross where we can't celebrate an artist anymore?
Where do you separate art and
is very like, he does have somewhat of an argument in a self-defense kind of way, because Euronymous was fucking mental as well. Yeah. And to his credit, from my understanding, he's not murdered anyone since.
No, he hasn't. I think he has bragged about murdering Euronymous though.
Yeah,
on his YouTube channel or wherever else.
Right, yeah.
So he's pretty. He's probably
puts it into question again.
Probably a bit pleased with himself about it.
Yeah.
But he does still claim to this day that it was in self-defense, and who knows, honestly.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, you make a good point.
Given enough time, they would have murdered each other.
Yeah, probably. But no, you make a good point. Like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
between can you separate like a person's art from the person themselves? And
because I could listen to it and technically admire it, but I couldn't sit there and connect with it, obviously, because it's a sociopath who's written that music. The same way Charles Manson was actually a very talented guy, but he
had a very like stream of consciousness kind of like style of songwriting. There's Manson.
Have you listened to any of Charlie Manson's?
I haven't,
songs?
But my dad keeps telling me to.
Yeah, look, it's interesting.
There's a great Brian Jonestown Massacre have an EP covering his songs.
Arkansas, I think the song is.
I thought there was a few that they'd done.
Well, I'm not. If that's the case, I'm not aware. But they did put a cover of, I believe it's called Arkansas by Charles Manson, on one of their EPs.
Yeah.
but if there's another one with more
so this one where
covers.
it's like there's in a car looking out.
Yep, that's the one.
I thought the whole EP was.
No, just the one
It's
song.
just the one song.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Never mind.
Fantastic cover though. To Jones Sound Massacre's credit, they probably fleshed that one out a little bit for Charlie, because
Yeah.
as I was saying, his songs are you can kind of tell they've been written by a madman, if you know what I mean. The lyrics are fucking way off kilter. Some are quite clever, but just the way he pieces a song together, he doesn't have much of a verse chorus verse kind of style of songwriting. He kind of, it just sounds like he's strumming a guitar and just kind of reciting his poetry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a good voice. He's a bit of a crooner, old Charlie Manson.
Yeah. He's
But yeah, look at your game, girl. That's if you want an example of how decent he was at singing and playing guitar, that's a good place to start. But yeah, once again, goes to show you that people with less than reputable, pasts, I guess, still capable of producing beautiful art.
Yeah. Well, I guess like another thing with art as well is it's, you got when you listen to music, you're venturing into the perspective of another world. The way you interpret it is going to be completely different person to person. But yeah, the most compelling kind of art or intriguing art is going to be made by people who have very different perspectives of the world to you. Sometimes they're perfectly innocent perspectives. Someone like Daniel Johnson, where like Hi, How Are You, where it's like he's got this childlike innocence about him, but it's this brilliantly written music and it's very sweet.
Like the 7-Up song. Have you heard that one?
No. Do you know about Daniel Johnson?
No.
Kurt Cobain was a huge fan.
Yeah.
My girlfriend got me onto Daniel Johnson.
Oh man, such a sad story. There's a really good documentary on YouTube about him. If you should check it out. I think if you just Google or YouTube Daniel Johnson documentary, it'll be one of the first ones that comes up. But yeah, poor guy was pretty much just
I think he's still alive and still.
Oh, he's still alive, yeah, but he was dogged by like mental illness and like severe mental illness, like schizophrenia paired with like really really severe it's like condition where you like have highs and lows, extreme highs and lows, bipolar. And yeah, he was institutionalized at a fairly young age, I think.
Yeah.
But he just had this knack for producing like beautiful music. It was kind of like his therapy, I guess. But he wrote a song while he was institutionalized, and I don't know what it's called. It could be called the 7-Up song. It's about 7-Up anyway. Oh no, sorry, not 7-Up. My mistake. Mountain Dew. He loved Mountain Dew. There was a vending machine in the institution that he was in, and he drank it every day. He probably drank numerous cans.
Yeah.
And he wrote a jingle and sent it to Mountain Dew, and this is on YouTube as well.
They used it.
Unfortunately, they couldn't use it because it was just like, it was quite
recorded on really.
It's a clever little song in that, but then at the end of the recording, he sort of like goes off on this little tangent about how there's like devil voices in his head and stuff. So it's this happy song about how he loves Mountain Dew, and then he's like, and there's devils in my head and shit like that, and like it's like, and then he just sent it off to Mountain Dew, and they're like, yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna have to politely decline. Yeah, but and that's another fascinating story.
Yeah. He's one of a kind.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely one of a kind. And yeah, like you just can't. I think you have to separate the art from the person who produced it in order to enjoy it. Because otherwise you might even find yourself looking for reasons not to enjoy art, and you can't. You can't put yourself in that position. You've got to enjoy everything.
I think it's like how you just have to be careful how you appreciate it.
Mm.
Because I can listen to Burzum while acknowledging that the person who created it is a complete sociopath or psychopath, whichever way you want to look at it, whether he developed that or was born with it. But I can still admire it for its technical kind of points.
Yeah.
But there's no way I'm going to sit there and connect with him as a person,
No,
I think that's where the
not.
concern comes, because obviously you don't want to create this like relationship with the art where people are inspired and it starts to define their values. And all that.
Yeah.
But
I suppose just don't listen to Burzum if you're an impressionable teenager. Wait,
Exactly.
keep it for your
wait till
adult
you're in your
years.
20s. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
You can acknowledge that he's a messed up individual.
Don't buy Burzum for your 15-year-old's birthday or whatever. It's probably not recommended.
Yeah. Are there any kind of niche artists that you've found in your with the fascinating stories that you found when you've been doing your musical history deep dives? And
I'm not too like schooled on niche things. But I mean, I'm obsessed with Amy Winehouse and her story.
Yeah, it's
I've watched
fascinating
every
story.
documentary that there is on it.
Yeah,
Love her to bits because she's
obviously being into soul,
she was
the pinnacle of soul for so many years.
Yeah, sure.
And it was such a sad way for her to go. And
tell us a bit about her background, because I know virtually nothing about Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I know she died of a heroin overdose, and that's about it.
I thought she died of like alcohol poisoning.
Oh,
here we go.
It was sort of
please do tell.
It was sort of a mix of both. The heroin addiction obviously was really bad. But she was in rehab. I think it was like she went 6 months without heroin, but then she was still having alcohol, and it was just her heart just gave up. Her body just couldn't deal with it anymore.
Just a culmination of years of abuse, basically.
Yeah, so that's why it's like so tragic, because she really was on the road to recovery.
Yeah.
And then it was just because she'd done so much stuff in the past, her body couldn't handle being alive anymore. And
what about her, her entrance into music and making music? How did that all come about?
She grew up on jazz singers, like all the traditional ones. And she just bought a guitar. It was meant for her brother, actually. She bought a guitar for her brother.
I heard that. Yeah.
And then she didn't want to. I think her brother was like away at school or something, I don't know, but he didn't come home for like a while. And by the time it was his birthday, or was it Christmas? I can't remember. But by the time she was going to give it to him, she'd fallen in love with it too much. So she kept it for herself and bought him a different thing. And then she just started writing songs, and she just had a knack for it. Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't like she grew up in a musical family or anything?
Not particularly. Yeah. No. Her dad was a taxi driver. Just really normal family.
Working class
family. Yeah. Like proper London family. Yeah. Very working class.
Is that where you're from, London?
My dad is. Yeah. We grew up just sort of outside in the countryside.
Yeah.
But yeah, dad's from like East End, proper geezer. Like yeah.
So he would have a few like musical stories as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like him and his whole family.
Because I think you had a few mod things on your jacket when you rocked up.
Yes.
As well. So yeah, that's obviously where that musical taste has kind of been drawn from.
A lot of where we're from, there's a lot of music there. Like my two aunts, they're a lot older than my dad, went to school with David Bowie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool drop.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And just like dad grew up with all the punk bands being his local bands down at the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the guys from The Clash lives here now as well.
Yes.
Is that true?
He
Scarborough.
He does a lot of the mod events that I go to. He's a Northern Soul DJ now.
Ah, right.
It's really, really cool.
I wonder if he's ever passed through Rhubarb before.
Probably.
I'm ashamed to say if he came into Rhubarb, I probably wouldn't recognize him.
Yeah, I think he was on one Clash album.
Yeah,
really?
It was the last one.
It wasn't London Calling.
Oh, okay.
My dad has he works with a guy, and he's mates with him, and like he always says, when he's talking about him, he's like, just me and Nick from the Clash.
Yeah.
Like dad just pulls the piss out of him. He's like, yeah, but it was like the last year.
It's a good reason to go and watch like live local music as often as possible, though, because just like your dad would have done back in the day, knocked off work and headed down the pub to watch a band, and now he can say, oh, well, that was the Sex Pistols, or like, that was the Clash, or that was some other legendary band. You just never know who's gonna break it next.
Yeah. So do you go to a lot of those Northern Soul scene kind of events?
Yeah,
around?
I haven't recently, but yeah, there's like always a mod festival each year and Northern Soul nights everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Northern Soul is fascinating as well because that was another really working class movement.
Oh yeah, it's like my favorite topic.
And I know, once again, I know not much about it at all, but so many people come into Rhubarb looking for Northern Soul 7 inches. And I know a lot of them are worth like stupendous amounts of money.
Ridiculous.
Very collectible. But
I saw one single for like 20 grand.
Oh, yeah,
on
like
eBay.
yeah, like who was it? So it might have even been you. Was it you who was telling me, or someone was telling me that they went and bought some records off of a guy, and he had like a collection of Northern Soul singles that he had like stowed away.
No, this wasn't me.
Wasn't you? No, it was someone else I was talking to recently. And
But do go on, yeah.
he's like, oh yeah, he pulls out this one single and he's like, yeah, this is like my retirement fund. Like I don't have any like super or anything like that. This is just my retirement fund right here.
Please
This
don't
is
leave it in the
one
car.
7-inch single. Yeah, don't leave it on the dashboard. But yeah, like it's so many people are so passionate about Northern Soul. You know, it would have been a fantastic thing to be a part of when it was all taking place. It's like you know, just white kids that grew up on black music and decided to make their own version of it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
fascinating though.
cool. I had someone come in the other day and they were telling me a story about their mate who was from the US and he bought a used Harley Davidson and for like cheap as and was restoring it. And then when he pulled up the seat, the underside was signed by Elvis Presley and he ended up selling the bike for a ridiculous amount of money.
Was it like so it must have been
He got it like
old
properly
bike.
checked and everything. Yeah, it was a very old bike. Yeah, he was like into vintage Harley Davidsons.
Must be so difficult to authenticate a signature like that
Right.
without, you know, because how do you
You don't. You'd have to get someone who like specifically knows Elvis.
yeah.
And would be like an Elvis collector, which I'm sure there are plenty out there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they would be able to verify.
I've had a few interesting signed things come through the shop, but the problem with that is there's how do you like I said, you can't authenticate that,
Yeah.
you know. So who knows what those things are worth.
So where do they usually hold some of the Northern Soul events?
There's one at the Irish. Oh my god, what is it called? I don't know if it's a club or the Irish pub or something in Subi.
Yeah.
They do that. I think it's the last Saturday of each month. And each year there's a mod festival at Claremont Showgrounds.
Yeah.
They have Northern Soul
I've seen
DJs.
that one pop up before.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to go to.
That's really cool. And there's a new soul club actually up because I'm past June up.
Yeah.
Up. I think it's the Currumbine Bistro. I don't know. They're doing it. They've
Oh, right.
got
That's
a new
the area
club.
I grew up in. I grew up on like Kinross, so
Oh, sick.
very
I'm in
familiar with
Iluka, so
there you go.
right across the road.
Yeah. Very cool.
And that's a new venue, is it? And they just put Soul Nights on there and soul
The
related
venue's
stuff,
always
or?
been there, but there's a new like club starting up. Like you can have a
okay,
membership
so they-
to a
Yeah,
soul club.
Yeah, they
I
put
think they do
nights on.
Motown and stuff as well.
And so that's
cool.
located in the northern suburbs now.
Yeah, because
That's cool.
we're all like English up there.
Yeah.
Mindari, like yeah.
I worked at the EB Games in Ocean Keys.
Oh
and
yeah.
I can tell you now, if that store would have the best sales for FIFA of all
No doubt.
EB Games outlets in WA. And I worked at that one, and that was at peak Call of Duty and all the other games of that era. But FIFA
Football.
outsold all of them by far. It was crazy. But
Stereotypes do exist.
They say Iluka.
that's really cool though that it's
Yeah.
that there's that dedicated venue
Yeah.
opening up. And that's at the Currumbine Bistro, you were saying?
I'm pretty sure that might be incorrect. I don't know.
Okay. Just in that area. Google it.
Yeah, it's up in the northern suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And have you got anything upcoming on your YouTube channel? Anything?
I've got a few different things written out, just like general gig reviews and stuff that I've been into lately. It's been a month.
Yeah.
So I need to catch up on uploading, but
Yeah.
there'll be stuff each week. Yeah.
What's the next video planned? Tease the audience with.
It's probably just going to be like a rundown of things I've been really loving,
Yeah.
gigs that I've been to, albums that I love, just new bands that I found. Yeah.
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 Groovy. And so you're on YouTube as we mentioned before, on a Luca, HONORLUCA.
Yes.
That's right. Instagram's the same handle.
Yep.
Do you do any other socials? Is there a Facebook page to like or not?
There was one, but I'm deleting it because
yeah.
like no one's interested.
People are flocking from Facebook.
Yeah.
Instagram is where it's at mostly. Cool. So those are the two kind of protocols.
Yeah.
For your content.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm always talking to people on Instagram. So
Yeah. Well, that's how it got you on the podcast. So
yeah.
If you go on to on his Instagram, there's a lot of cool stuff to explore.
Always up for a chat.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate it. I'm glad I had no idea about Northern Soul. I'm glad
I could go on for hours.
That's one I'll be checking out because, like I said, I don't know much about it. I just know that so many people are so goddamn passionate about it. There must be something to it.
Yeah.
It's because it was so rare and special.
Yeah. Is it still a movement that kind of like has new artists cropping up?
No, that's the thing. That's why it's so
Yeah.
expensive, because some of the best tracks that everyone loved, there was like 3 copies ever made, and they don't have the rights to that anymore. So there's 3 copies in the world, and like you'd have to travel right out to wherever the one DJ that had that copy was.
Yeah.
And they'd cover like the records so you couldn't see names, like you couldn't see artists. You
Why would
just
they
had
do
to
that?
Because it was like the most hipster movement ever.
Oh, so they would purposely kind of like
because
hide it for so that they could kind of keep it for certain people and suss them out.
yeah,
And be like,
sort of
this
like
is the secret collection.
yeah, it was
Kind of like
After
Norwegian
the-
black metal.
yeah.
Yeah.
After the war, all these like English people that were going out and meeting American soldiers and that, especially black soldiers, they had all this music from Motown, and Northern Soul was kind of Motown records that weren't actually recorded by Motown.
Like an inspired by
artist
range.
the artists that didn't have enough money to record with Motown, basically.
Right.
So it's all like really obscure stuff. It had to have like a particular beat. And they brought it back to England after the war. And it stayed in London for the 60s. And it wasn't Northern Soul back then, it was just soul. And then the working class up in the north, like Manchester and all those places, once it got to the 70s, they were still sort of back in the dark ages pretty much. Like the only live music they could go to was shitty cover bands. So they were really inspired by the mods in the 60s in London, but the mods had already moved on to like psychedelic music, and they were just not having it. Like the Northerners were like, no, it's too arty-farty for us.
Yeah.
So we want soul. And they would find these specific records and bring them back, and just every Saturday night, people would travel from literally the entire country just to one little club so they could hear like the one song that they like. And there was only like 1 or 2 copies of that song.
Huh.
So yeah, it's really, really interesting.
That is a huge effort.
Yeah.
And, yeah. No wonder people are so passionate about it. That's
And it was like 1 year that this particular type of music was made. So it ran out really quickly.
So it was just like
Right.
a real lightning in a bottle type of situation where
Yeah.
it was
blink
just
and you
all
miss
of
it.
all of the ingredients were there, the timing was right, it happened, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
So-
it's still pretty rare for people to be making Northern Soul style music.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really... people that are really into Northern Soul would not accept people that are making like
So
new
it's like
Northern Soul.
poser kind of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
Because it was such a rare and like precious thing that
A
they're very
and it was a
purists.
situational thing as well by
Yeah.
the sound
Yeah.
of it. Like you couldn't really have
Can't recapture it in today's era.
like the whole climate, everything that kind of created it is gone now, I guess, by the sound of it. So Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting that I jokingly drew a comparison to that and Norwegian black metal, but similar
there
thing.
is a link there because
Yeah.
like Norwegian black metal pretty much died.
Well, it was
it's still kind of going.
it was it existed. It was fueled by bootlegs and it was fueled by demos and it was like a community, a very niche like community based sort of thing. It's obviously a lot larger in
It
scale
wasn't
now.
birthed by business; it was birthed.
Yeah, and like Euronymous Record Shop was the center of it, much like the club that you mentioned for Northern Soul was, where everybody could go and enjoy it, and that was like Euronymous's Record Shop was that place for Norwegian black metal. But yeah, it's interesting. Drawing some parallels there.
Yeah. There's a lot of Northern Soul influence that people don't realize is there.
Yeah.
Like oh my god, what is that song? Tainted Love.
Oh,
Is a cover of a Northern Soul track.
yeah, that's right.
yeah, I
Soft
heard-
Cell. Because that's not an original, and I never knew who the original was.
I heard
Gloria
the original,
Jones, yeah.
Yeah, I heard the actual original one not long ago. Actually, maybe it was on your channel.
Probably, yeah.
Have you done a video separate to the other maybe it was in that Northern Soul one.
I'm not sure. I might have used it in the background. I don't know. Maybe.
Because something drew my attention to it the other day, and I was like, because Marilyn Manson covered it.
I was going to mention that.
But he was covering Soft Cell doing
That
it.
yeah.
But
Well, he
Soft
must
Cell
have known that. Well, I'm sure he knew that it was Soft Cell were covering it. Surely, I'm sure he. So
He's
which
a
means that
switch-on guy.
yeah. So Marilyn Manson probably knows a fair bit about Northern Soul. I'm sure
he
he's.
might be a big news.
He might have deep dived into Northern Soul.
yeah.
I can definitely imagine Marilyn Manson being into a scene you wouldn't typically picture him being into. He is that kind of
That's
guy.
it. Yeah.
So maybe that was his little ode to it,
Yeah. Who knows? Hey.
or maybe he just liked Soft Cell songs. Who knows?
Soft Cell were pretty good. They were pretty good. They were better than a one-hit wonder band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really. We've got that record.
Have a listen to it. It's pretty decent.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
You'll enjoy it. You'll get a kick out of it.
yeah,
You like
nice.
electronic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Few synths in there. Cool. All right. Well, we might wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Honor.
Thanks.
Thanks. Pleasure to
Liam.
meet you.
Is there
You too.
anything we need to announce for the record shop at all? Any events or anything like that?
Look.
Because there's that one in planning. Do we want to?
I can't unfortunately reveal anything about that just yet. There's still too much up in the air with that one, but there is something in the pipeline. So we'll
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Keep your eyes and ears peeled, and we'll announce something shortly.
Yeah, it's worth keeping your ears, sharp for, because you've told me about it, and it's I've been pretty interested.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll update you as we can on that one.
yeah, cool. All right, thanks, Liam.
Thanks, Matt.